All right, welcome to another expert interview. Always excited to get on these and talk about different topics, meet different people. We also just did a part two podcast. This is another part two podcast. Michael Zeno is back with us, and I'm excited to have this conversation because there's so much fear and media attention around real estate and interest rates and all this stuff right now. So I'd love to dive into that, get some clarity, talk through the market, economics, real estate in general. And I know Zeno's crushing it. So with that, let's jump in. Mike, tell everyone who you are and what you do.
Thank you, Devin. It's awesome to be back. I've been super excited about this. Michael Zeno. I am with Remax Professionals here in Reno, Nevada. I'm specifically on the Mike Wood team, residential real estate. Super excited. Devin and I always have great conversations across the board, and I'm really happy to be back.
Love it, man. So let's jump straight into the shift, right? We just came out of what was the hottest seller market we've probably ever seen. Seriously, I think for sale by owner probably was a real thing because it could be. So talk about the shift. What are we seeing in the economy and how are we changing and what's that mean?
Yeah, at first I thought you said, let's just get into the shit, but now I realized you said shift. Either one would have been accurate.
It's true.
Yeah, no, you're right. So for sale by owner, I mean, a lot of people thought the last 2 years you didn't need a real estate agent to sell your house. And a lot of people were right. The inventory was so low, the demand was so high that houses were selling hours on the market. Devin and I both sold in the last couple of years and both experienced that ourselves. So we know what that looked like. But the major shift from a seller's market to a buyer's market happened about mid-year this year, driven by interest rates, driven by the overall economy, inflation. I mean, the war in Russia, Ukraine, there was a lot of different aspects that went into it, but it was a major shift in the market.
Love that. So going from a seller's to a buyer's market, right? So in the seller's world, obviously, if you have a house, you can try to move up, although it is hard because everything's expensive, right? And now we're in a buyer's market-ish, right? Because interest rates are high. So there may be some fear right now about not being able to afford to buy. So talk to me about, is that true? And what's it look like if you're trying to get into the market?
Yeah, absolutely. So just a little definition for everybody. Seller's market obviously means the seller has the advantage. Buyer's market means the buyer has an advantage. And you're right, it is kind of ish. It's definitely a buyer's market because the supply is way higher than the demand right now. And the biggest key, and I think we'll get into this later, is that the demand has been choked out by the government raising rates. And so you hear a lot of stuff on the media right now, fear-based, saying high interest rates, don't buy, wait, market's crashing, bubble, all those things. And really what it is the government is specifically doing this on purpose to lower demand to try to battle inflation. And it's really their only thing that they can do on a large scale to try to slow things down is because the real estate market drives a lot of other things. And so they are doing what they know how to do. Whether they know how to do it correctly or not is a whole other conversation. But they are doing what they know how to do by slowing things down. And that is by making it harder to buy homes, by making your interest rate higher, meaning your payment is more expensive, meaning the demand decreases, supply increases, shifting it from a seller's market to a buyer's market. Saying that, it's been a seller's market because interest rates, basically the Fed rate was zero. It didn't cost anything. It was so low that it was so easy to get money, so cheap to get money, that it was a seller's market because the demand was super high because it was easy to get money. Right now, it's the exact opposite. So you have buyers with control because you have an oversupply, which oversupply is a loaded statement because I really don't think we have an oversupply. We're getting more back to a healthy market, numbers-wise, transactions-wise. The last 2 years were fake in my terms because you'll never see that again, like you said. You'll never have a 2% interest rate on a 30-year fixed loan. That just isn't going to happen again. So we're getting back to a more normal market. I have no fears about what's happening because we are just reversing the craziness of the last 2 years, getting back to a more normal, more healthy, more sustainable market. So that's where we're headed.
Love it. So let's talk about first time buyers. I always like to go here, let's talk to the people who are on the fence, right? They've never purchased a house. They're trying to get into the market. And kind of to your point, and I know I've heard this, guys, so this is just my testament is in every market, there's an excuse, right? So in the seller market, the excuse is everything's expensive. In the buyer market, yeah, you may have more leverage, but in this case, you may have to pay more because interest rates are higher. So there's always something you can say that can keep you out of the market. But as a first-time buyer, what do they do? Like, how do they even know if they can buy? Where do they start? Give us the general advice for a first-time buyer.
Absolutely. And you're 100% right. There's always somebody or something saying now's not the right time to buy. Don't buy. You're going to overpay or everything's too expensive. So my biggest key with first-time home buyers is to have the conversation of what it really looks like. Media is going to tell you one thing. Your friend down the street is going to tell you another thing. Your father-in-law is going to tell you another thing. The reality is to sit down with a professional that does this every day, that can give you real information about what it looks like. Obviously, with interest rates being higher, right now your payment is higher. So what you're going to qualify for a mortgage is going to be a lot less than it was 12, 18, 24 months ago. Saying that, though, prices are coming down and sellers are giving more than they have, I want to say, in the last 10 years to try to get their house sold. So as a first-time home buyer, it's going to be a little nerve-wracking because it's a big purchase. It's your first time. But the steps are simple. Sit down with somebody that's a professional, get a great lender involved, which your real estate professional can give you a referral, and just see what that payment looks like. And if that payment is lower than what you want, there's so many things that you can control. You can't control the market. You can't control what the price of the houses are out there. But with a couple easy steps, you can easily change what you can qualify for, whether that's eliminating debt, whether that's finding out you need certain seller credits back from the seller, which basically lowers your money out of pocket, gives you extra money to buy down the interest rate. I have a lender right now that is doing something called a 2-1 buy down. Basically, year one, you have 2% lower than what the regular rate is, and they're offering a 3.99% interest rate for your first year. That's in the threes again. I mean, your normal interest rate right now is 6.5%. So to get that down to 3.99, your affordability goes way up, and it's not as scary as everybody says it is. But sit down with somebody, find out the location, the area that you're looking for, find out what homes in that area are in what price range, talk to a lender, find out what you qualify for. And sometimes it's, yes, here's a pre-approval today. Sometimes it's, well, I only qualify for 350, but the house I really want in this area that I want is 450. What are the steps I need to do to get there? And there's lots of things that can affect that. And you can get there within a couple months. You can get seller credits to lower that money out of pocket and the interest rate to be able to qualify for more. So there's lots of ways to be able to improve your situation, but you don't know until you actually sit down and really go over the numbers with a professional.
That's great advice. And I think it's something that, again, if you guys are first-time buyers, if you're thinking about getting in the market, you go talk to a realtor or mortgage lender and figure out, one, what can you qualify for, right? Like, if you're an individual, what can you buy? If you're a couple, what's your combined income get you? What's your debt to income? What's your credit score? And there's so many levers there that can allow you to spend 50,000 more with a couple tweaks. And so I think it's important to know that. I know I had a realtor back right before I bought my first house. He just said, dude, why don't you own a house? And I was like, well, I can't afford it. I'm self-employed. They said, okay, well, here's a mortgage lender. I sat down with a mortgage lender and we moved into the new house 31 days later. So, you never know. And I know from my own personal friend circle, I still hear some friends with, I can't afford it. The market's too expensive. Well, have you done the math? And then what do you pay for rent right now? Because I know what I pay because I'm out of the market right now. I know what I pay, and it's a lot. So
yeah, the rental market's been on fire too, just like everything else, because of such a high demand. And the thought process of, well, even if your thought process is, well, my rent is cheaper than it is buying a house today, right at this moment, yes, that may be accurate. But when you own a house, you're paying yourself long term. You're building equity, you're building long-term sustainability, you're building generational wealth at that point. And so maybe year one and year two, yes, it's cheaper to pay rent. But when you're talking 8, 10, 15, 20 years later, when you have a paid off house, to me, it's a no-brainer. But step one is, like you said, there's fear of not knowing because you just don't know. And until you sit down and know, step one is sitting down and finding out, what do I qualify for? And the answer is never no. It's always a yes, it's a maybe, it's maybe not right now, it's we got to get you here, but it's never a straight up no. So you're never just going to be straight up denied and say, go home. Somebody's going to tell you, here's where you're at, here's where we need to get you, or here's where we're at, here's where you want to be, here's the steps to get there. So it all starts with a phone conversation that is a little scary because you're talking about money, but it's the only way to do it.
That's great. Let's talk about, I know we did this on the last one too, but like finding a realtor, because I think that the answers have changed and I think it's so much more important now, because the realtor they got to go to work, right? Like if you want to sell your house, the realtor is going to have to work. And if you want to buy right now, the realtor's got to work. So if someone's out there trying to find a realtor, like what questions and things should they look at to understand, is the realtor that I chose the right fit? Or, is Joe Bob, my friend down the street, really the guy I should go with, right? What should they ask? What do they look at? How do they know?
Yeah, I'll start with the seller first. So if you're looking to sell your house right now, I think it's even more important to really ask good questions to your real estate agent, or if you're interviewing agents. There's somebody that's going to be out there that's going to throw you the highest number and it's going to look super attractive. And the last 2 years, you couldn't have put a wrong price on a house. You could have slapped it up for a ridiculous amount and guess what? It was going to sell. Right now, it is the exact opposite of that. Pricing your house and doing really good market research and knowing somebody that is a professional in the area is more important than ever, because yeah, I could throw your house up for $1 million and all you're going to do is be mad at me 6 months later when it still hasn't sold. So finding someone that gives you honest answers, good market research, and not just throwing out the highest number is what's most important right now. And then just look at their history. I can look at every single real estate agent in Reno and tell you how much production they do. I can tell you who's involved in the community. Facebook stalk them. Look at Instagram. Look if they have social media. Look to see what kind of content they're putting out there. Because as unimportant as content is, it's also important to see what they're doing and what kind of information they're putting out there. You see so many of these content creators just putting out garbage that I saw a video the other day of this real estate guru said, take your student loans and buy investment properties. That's fraud. You could go to jail for that. Yet he has millions of followers putting that out on the internet. And so it's not always good content. So you really got to pay attention to what information they're putting out there. As for buyers, somebody that you trust, somebody that you feel comfortable with, you're probably going to be spending a lot of time with them. You're going to be, the nice thing is with this market, you can take your time really shopping and finding out what the right property is for you. So you're going to be spending a good amount of time with them. Find somebody you're comfortable with that shares the same interests, that you can trust. Obviously, I mean, somebody can be brand new in the market and be a right fit for you. It's not always about experience. It's about trust and who fits you best and who fits your lifestyle the best and what you're looking for. And availability is a big one too. I mean, the nice thing is you don't have to see a house 30 seconds after it comes on the market right now. But you have to find someone that's good at negotiating to be able to get you the right deal for the right house. You can't change the location of a house, but you can change the price. And so right now, negotiation is a huge key to getting buyers into contract, because the sellers are looking 6 months in the past going, my neighbor sold their house in June for tons of money. Buyers are looking 6 months in the future going, well, I get in contract, by the time I close, I move in, I do all these things. What's my house going to be worth then? And somewhere in the middle of those two is the battle that I, as a real estate professional, have to get both sides to. And it's not always easy. It's not always going to happen. But a good real estate agent will get you that perfect middle spot where the seller's happy, the buyer's happy, and you get a house.
That's great info. Talk to me about how do I know how many transactions you've been a part of? What platform will tell me that?
So I don't know if the general public can just see a platform that has those numbers. As a part of the MLS or in a real estate professional, I can look. But I would go to reviews. I mean, go to Google, go to Zillow, go to Realtor, go to all those things and see client testimonials. Ask your trusted sphere. Pretty much everybody knows a real estate agent. So go to your insurance agent, go to your financial advisor, go to your attorney, go to your Devin Sizemore. Devin knows more people than anybody else I know. So I would go to Devin. If you're watching this video, go to Devin and ask him. And Devin will direct you to the right person that's going to fit you best. If you have one person referring all your business to one person, you're not doing that person justice because you're just putting everybody in the same line. I hate not being the only referral partner, but if you're looking out for your client or your friend or whatever, you need multiple people to refer to because it has to fit their personality, their needs, their wants, and all that. So for the general public, I would look at reviews and client testimonials. Look on social media, look on Google, look on Zillow, and find someone that has good reviews, not just blanket statements, because you can pay for reviews now. But look for real life reviews and then ask your other business professionals that your why can't I say that word? Insurance agent, your financial advisor, anybody like that.
That's good advice. And that's what I want to get to, guys, is like take the time, read the reviews, look at transaction history on Zillow. I know you can kind of see what they're listing and how many active listings they have. So go look. If they have nothing, I would ask a lot of questions, right? And it's okay to work with new professionals. It totally is. But ask them about the team that supports them. Ask them what the office looks like. How do they go about marketing your house? How do they go about looking at houses? So I want to ask another question. You play therapist and marriage consultant and whatever else. I know one thing that I struggle with even, people in my sphere, trying to get them to actually get through the buying process is, the spouses being so far apart on, dreams versus reality. How do you help people? Like, is there a tool or a way to help people understand, like, how to make a decision on what matters and what doesn't matter when buying?
Yes. I'll kind of twist that question a little bit. When you go to a doctor's office and they ask you lots of questions about how you're feeling, how are you sleeping? How's your diet? Do you get headaches? Do you drink alcohol? Do you take, all those things? You don't get offended when the nurse or the doctor asks you a lot of questions. So as a real estate agent, a lot of times we're afraid to ask difficult questions or a lot of questions. We just think, I need to show them the right house and get them in contract. My approach to it is I'm going to ask you a ton of questions to really get to know you and who you are and what's important. And sometimes those answers are very different with husbands and wives or partners or the two different entities that are buying the house. So my job is to find out what really is important. If I ask you, what do you want in a house? And you give me 100 things. Okay, great. This is going to take a while. But then when I really ask questions, you may say, I want 4 bedrooms on an acre. And then I start asking more questions. You go, well, I don't like doing yard work. Okay, so you say you want an acre, but you don't want to do yard work. So the acre really isn't as important as you think. Why do you want an acre? Oh, well, I have an RV. Okay, so it needs RV parking. So you don't really need an acre. You just need space to store a boat and an RV, but you don't want yard work. So asking really good specific questions about properties and getting honest feedback is my job to kind of brush away all the things on the needs list that might be 30 things long, when in reality, you really just want to be in Midtown. You don't need the 30 different things. So dealing with a husband and wife is a totally different thing, and two different completely. He wants a man cave. She wants move turnkey ready. He wants a project, right? Finding something in between the two, tailoring to one, finding a common ground. That is probably the hardest part, because you try to make everybody happy. You try to find them everything that they do want. But in reality, like I said, when you really start asking real questions, a lot of those must-haves aren't really must-haves. It's something that they think they want, but in reality, it's something completely different.
That's great advice. And I know that it's important, right? I know that, we all have a hit list. I know every property I bought, I have my hit list of things that it has to have. And I know I'm pretty good at refining that, and understanding like what's changeable and what's not, right? Like you said earlier, you can't move the location, right? So are you gonna take a hit on location? Well, probably not, right? Your neighbors, your neighborhood, things like that. So that's great advice.
And sometimes on that point though, sometimes the location you think you want isn't the location you have to have. I had a client that just closed that was only looking at South Reno. They had a little bit of a lower budget, so they were older homes that all needed work, were really small square footage. I showed them a brand new build out in Lemon Valley. They said, "Oh, we're never moving to Lemon Valley." We closed last week in Lemon Valley on a brand new house. So
That's why you use a
sometimes,
professional, right? Is your realtor can tell you like, hey, great, I know that you want XYZ in this neighborhood, but did you know if you go to this other neighborhood, you can get more house? Or if you go to this other neighborhood, you can get more yard. Or if you go to this neighborhood, you can get better education because maybe I heard that that was important for you. Or, oh, I heard that the church that you're interested in is in the Northwest. Well, why are you looking down south? Whatever it is, your realtor can kind of call you out on that and guide. And if you're working with a realtor and this stuff's not aligning, like if the stuff we're talking about, it's okay to find another realtor.
you're right. And that's a hard conversation to have. But at the same time, if they're not asking the right questions and really looking out for your best interests, it's not a good fit.
So let's talk about getting into the industry. I don't think we've talked about this, but it's relevant. You have a totally different perspective because you've been in title, you've been in mortgage, and you've been in the real estate side. If someone is looking at, hey, I want to change, right? Maybe it's someone who's graduating high school and looking for a career opportunity. Maybe it's someone who's just burnt out and looking for something new. Um, I don't ask should. Why would they consider real estate? And then, what piece of real estate makes sense as far as real estate, mortgage, title? Just give us kind of an overview and help people, see if it's something for them.
It's a great question. A lot of people got in the real estate game the last couple of years because it was so on fire. And I don't want to say it was easy, but it was kind of easy. A lot of people were making a lot of money. A lot of people got into the business. And the people who really got in the business for the right reasons will still be here in the downturn. And a lot of them won't. So if you are interested in getting into the real estate game, Devin mentioned all three, right? You have title, you have lending, mortgage, and you have the real estate side. There are lots of other parts of the real estate transaction that you could get into: inspections, home warranties. There's lots of other ones. But myself going through the process of all three, I'll kind of talk about the pros and cons of all those and why I switched. I mean, I started in mortgage. Mortgage was a great introduction into real estate because I'd bought a house before, but I didn't really know the ins and outs of real estate as a whole or how it worked. And mortgage was a really good foundation because it started with the money. It started with how people get approved to buy a house. How do people start the process? A lot of people start with a real estate agent, which is great because you're looking at homes, so call a real estate agent. But the process really starts with what can I qualify for to really narrow in what houses to look at. So that was a great industry to start with for me because I really got a foundational level of mortgage. So if you're looking to get into mortgages, there's plenty of local, really good businesses. You can work from home from a lot of these online companies too. There's lots of flexibility there. To really get the most of it, I would say find a local branch, talk to them, find out about what that process looks like. You do have to get licensed. There is a course you have to take and pass. But it's a great foundational level information about how the process works, what mortgages look like, really understanding the finance behind the total real estate business, because it all falls back to money, right? Whether it's investment properties, whether it's primary residence, whether it's commercial, whatever it is, money is the foundation of all of it. When it comes to title is kind of the middleman in the process. So the title company and the escrow company, what they do is they are the middleman between the lender, the buyer, and the real estate agent. They process the transaction, they handle all the legal documents, and they are the one that finalizes everything, double, triple checks everything, and finalizes it with the county that you live in for the transfer of ownership. They're the middleman. They don't have one side or the other. They don't favor it. They hold the money so that they're a third party that nobody is involved with. And then they also hold your escrow account, meaning when you pay your monthly payment, they're the ones that distribute the money to the bank, to the county for your taxes, and everything else. So that is a great way to learn the legal side of it, learn how the process works of taking from one ownership to the next. You can be a escrow agent where you actually do the documentation and do the legal paperwork. I was on the sales side, so I was out meeting with lenders and real estate agents and building my network there to help both of them do their business better. So if you're a big networker, if you're really outgoing, that is a great spot for you to go. If you're really analytical and you really like numbers and you like sitting down and crunching numbers and working out puzzles, a lender is a great way for you to go. I am now a real estate agent because I didn't like sitting in an office all day. And a lot of lenders have to be behind a desk to do their work. Not all of them. You can still network and do all that, but a lot of it was office based. For me and my personality, I like being face first in front of the clients. I like going out and getting my business. I don't like having to sit and kind of wait for business to come to me. I like going and getting business, and I like being up front in front of the customers. I like seeing them smile. I like showing them houses. I like driving. I like being out and about. So it's a perfect fit for me. If you are a person that is a go-getter, that has a great network, that has a good sphere of business people in town, everybody says, well, I got in it to have a flexible schedule. It's like a 50-50 flexible schedule. 50% of the time you have flexibility, 50% of the time you're on the mercy of the client's schedule. So, you know, if a big client calls me at 8 o'clock at night and says, hey, there's a house in Washoe Valley that's $4 million, guess what? I'm driving to Washoe Valley at 8 o'clock at night. So it's kind of 50-50, but it's a great industry to be outgoing, to really work on your networking. My passion about it is I love building a community around my clients. So I don't want to just sell them a home. I want to sell them the home, to meet all the neighbors, to meet the community, to create a life, to create generational wealth, to really introduce them to everybody that I know, so that they're not just moving into a home, they're moving into a home with a whole sphere of people around them to support them and a whole community to help their lives get better.
That's such a good answer. And I appreciate you taking the time to walk through it, because I think a lot of people don't understand there's so many ways. If you're looking for career changes, there's so many ways to get involved in the real estate industry, right? You know, even like you talked about title and escrow, there's multiple pieces there. In the mortgage office, there's the people actually pushing paperwork, but then there's all the facilitators and admins and everyone behind the scenes. And that we're talking local, right? There's a whole nother level of underwriting and other pieces you can get involved with. And what I can tell you is I personally know people who are extremely wealthy and extremely successful in all three. And so I wouldn't sit there and take a sales pitch from someone on, you're going to make more money here, you're going to make more money there. You're going to make more money where it matches your skill set and your passion. And so if you're, to Zeno's point, if you're not passionate about sitting behind a computer and crunching numbers, and that's going to drain you by the end of the day, then being a mortgage lender may not be the option, right?
Definitely not being an underwriter is not for you. Definitely being an escrow officer is not for you, because a lot of that is paperwork. A lot of that is analytical and making sure everything lines up and double and triple checking everything. I am not a detail-oriented person, so those would drive me crazy. I've last 2 days. But people and networking and being out and about is what I'm drawn to. So there, like you said, there's probably, in those three businesses, there's probably 100 different positions that you could be in. And like you said, you can make money, really good money, in all 100 positions. It's you focus on that, you work hard in that, and it fits your personality and your what drives you and what your passion is. Absolutely, you can thrive in that.
And what I would say too, if you're thinking about moving in the industry, the team and company right? So your coworkers, the people around you, and then the company, and then I would say the broker or leader of whatever that branch or team is. Those are the things you really need to consider. So often people only focus on, I get a 0.5% more here, or the salary's this, or the upsides that. Look, money's a piece, right? We have to get paid what we're worth, and we have to be able to cover our bills, but you have to enjoy who you're going to work with, and you have to be part of a team that's actually doing something.
And there's multiple ways to be a part of a team. So you can go out and be a solo agent, and the team is your brokerage. Do you have support from your broker? Is your broker available? Is your broker giving you continuing education and support? And will they pick up the phone when you need questions? Then you can join a team inside of a brokerage. So you have a team lead that is more available or more hands-on, or less hands-on if that's what you need and that's what you want. Same with mortgage, right? You can join a mortgage team. You can be part of the process there. You can go out and do it on your own. So like you said, the team, there's multiple levels of teams when it comes to real estate. So whether it's lending, whether it's real estate, whether it's title, they're all different levels of teams that you can join. And so sometimes being a solo agent is what's right for you. Sometimes joining a team and having more support, but giving out a little bit more of your pay is what's right for you. So definitely explore different options. It's not just going out on your own and feeding you to the wolves. There's a lot of support that you can join and be a part of to help you get the process started.
So let's talk about selling a house. It's obviously critical now, because before, I mean, people were buying houses without even looking at them. So obviously in this market, right, the marketing side of selling property is critical, and it should have always been, to be honest. It's something that is the best practice. So if you are a seller, someone who, has a property, they're thinking of moving up, maybe they're downsizing because the kids graduated, they're ready to make a move. When you go to sell your house, what are some tips to either add value to the sell or make it quicker to sell?
Yeah. It's funny. I literally had this conversation this morning with another agent of how most agents, I think the number is over 50% of the agents in Reno have not seen a market that we're in right now, because most of them are newer, and we've had such an upside market for, 8 to 10 years. So not a lot of people have a lot of experience in the market we're in right now. Saying that, the marketing side of a listing has been a forgotten skill, because you can throw an iPhone picture on Zillow and sell it in 4 hours last year. And now it's really important to have somebody that has a history of really good listings and a history of selling houses. So our team, what we do is we come in with a lot of information. Like I said before, it's not the agent that throws out the highest number and gives you a fancy good feel, we'll sell your house for more money than you know. It's really about how connected is your real estate agent with other real estate professionals. We're doing a lot of broker opens right now. We're doing a lot of open houses, and those are kind of the basic things, but they really do create a buzz around your house. Saying that, you're not going to sell your house in 5 days. It's just the fact of the matter of the market right now. Most houses are selling between 30 and 120 days right now. And 3-4 months on the market seems like an eternity when you're having to leave the house and to get showings and trying to figure out, am I going to sell? Am I moving? Am I buying another house? So it's definitely frustrating right now as a seller in this market. But to have somebody that gives you really clear communication, gives you weekly updates, and shares with you their plan of how they're going to sell your house, whether it's mailers, whether it's door knocking. For me, I've always been a relationship-based person. So I know a lot of other real estate agents in Reno. And so if I have a specific property that I'm listing and I'm having a hard time selling it, I'm calling every single real estate agent in my phone and saying, hey, this is what I have. This is where we're at. Do you have a client? And so someone who doesn't have a huge database or hasn't been in the business that long are going to struggle with that, because you can't just throw it up and someone's going to walk in an open house, or someone's going to see it on Zillow and say, cool, I'm buying that house. It's really a trusted person, a trusted professional in this city that is going to sell your house right now. We do work with out of town buyers as well. Californians are still coming into the state, not as high as it was before, not in droves like they were, but they're still there. The opportunity is still there to sell to an out of state buyer. But like I said, right now, a lot of the deals that are happening are houses that are sitting 90 days, are for people that are local, that have been looking for months now, and then finally just decide like, okay, this is the house I want because the price has finally come to where it is. So selling is not easy right now. Anybody that tells you that is lying to you. But there's a process that gives you the best chance and the best marketability to get your home out there to more people. And it's tough, but that's it.
I love that you talk about the network, right? I think it's something that we forget. Take the photos, depersonalize the house, blah, 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 right? Like you can go get a 10-point checklist on what you need to do to prep to sell, and it's probably pretty accurate. But I love that you talk about the network because you're right. Your realtor needs to be able to, one, not be scared of the phone, and two, be able to pick up the phone and start dialing and say, hey, you may not have seen this property. Maybe your client didn't. This is what I have. This is where it's at. This is what's motivating my client, and really make those calls. So that was really insightful. Let's talk renovations. I know it's something that comes up, and it's probably something where you could waste some money. Like if you're staying long term, renovate whatever you want. But if you were going to renovate your house with the intent to sell, what should you spend money on?
Yeah, the biggest thing is there was so many people on social media talking about the Burr method and house flipping and getting into the real estate game to buy a house, fix it up, and sell it for a profit. You're not hearing much of that anymore on social media. I don't know if you've noticed, Devin, but a lot of those real estate gurus have been pretty quiet lately because, yeah, again, you couldn't have made a bad move the last couple of years, but right now it's the money's much harder to get. And it's expensive to do the renovations, and it's hard to get that money back. You nailed it on the head, though. Time frame is the biggest key when it comes to renovations. If you're planning on being in a house 2 years, minimal things are what you're going to want to do, because it's going to be hard to get a lot of your money back or gain a lot of value in a short amount of time right now. We're coming into a much more level market. I still think you're going to see year-over-year increases moving forward, but it's not going to be what you saw before. So simple stuff: paint, inside, outside, little things, replacing light fixtures, replacing baseboards. Those kinds of things are going to be the smaller things that make a good difference to really notice in a house, but is not going to break the bank. If you're talking 5+ years in a house, then yeah, you can take on some bigger projects. Materials are still expensive, work is still expensive, but the main things that people look at obviously are your bathrooms and your kitchen. Those are also the two most expensive parts to renovate. So if you can not go way over the top, a lot of these houses that you see on your selling sunsets and all those, they talk about the highest quality and the imported granite. A lot of that is specific taste to the homeowner. And that only works if you're selling a $12 million house. So for you renovating your kitchen, it doesn't need to be super specific. It doesn't need to, people really don't care that the granite's been imported. As long as it is done well and is done by a trusted professional, and it fits the overall feel of the house and the space of the house, is going to be your best bet. Don't do something that's super quirky or super unique to you, because most people aren't going to like that. Also, don't worry about the materials being the top unless you're in a very high-end market or a very high-end house. So there's ways to do these renovations and not break the bank and still get the value back out of it.
Good advice there. The time frame, you're right, I think is critical. I think a lot of people, it's emotional because we see it every day. But if you're going to make that decision, make the decision based on your intent and how long you plan on being there. And just know that Zeno and I both bought houses when we weren't planning to. So just know that your time frame might be out of line. And yeah, so just know that.
And there's nothing wrong with moving before you think you're going to move. I mean, the average person owns a house for 9 years. Devin and I both moved multiple times in the course of 4 years. So it's not always 9 years, especially when life's changing. Devin and I are still, I'll say, younger for now. we're slowly not getting younger, but we're in our younger stages. So lots changed in a short amount of time. But yeah, it's you may think you need it to be this big ordeal and everything has to be the nicest of nice, but plans change pretty quickly. So just make sure you remember that.
So let's talk briefly about kind of the 1.5 million plus market. So if we're doing larger transactions, different style buyer, different style seller, what are some different things if you are someone in that space or looking to do a deal in that space? What are some other things to consider that might be outside the norm?
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing is there's not a ton of inventory in that space. So you're not competing with, 1,000 other homes in Reno right now. But I think more true than anything is the network that I have or the network that the real estate agent has. Because 10 people walk into your house, one person's going to be able to afford that $1.5 million house. Whereas if you're listing a $500,000 house, it's the exact opposite. So it's really key to have really good relationships with other agents that have high-end clients. Marketing obviously is a very important part of that too. You want to get it as wide as possible, but longevity in the market, because that house is going to sit on the market possibly even longer than a regular home because you don't have as much demand for those high-end houses. So you're seeing a lot of those houses be on the market sometimes even 6 months right now. And it just making sure that client is aware of that, the communication is open, and you've set the right game plan from day one so that their expectations are correct is key for us in our business right now. On the selling side of it, it's really just creating a buzz around that. I sold a $1.5 million house a couple months ago, right as the market was turning. And the key point there is I did broker opens every weekend. So I hit up a different brokerage every single weekend and say, this is your weekend, invite every single one of your agents out to this house. And I got an agent that came through that had a client in California. And I would not have gotten that client unless I did that. So having those relationships, it's the one thing that I do think those Netflix shows do get right is they throw really big broker opens. And for that high-end market, you're not going to have just a buyer that walks in or a buyer that's surfing the internet. It's going to be a client that has a real estate agent or is looking for something very specific in that neighborhood, in that market. And you have to make sure that information's out there and available.
Back to relationships. But I think you're right. I think that's something to think about. If you are that level of buyer, right? You probably have teed up your realtor and they should be the one finding you something. I think if you're buying smaller, Zillow and realtor, and you're going to have the time to flip through and find stuff, but you're really going to want your realtor to say, hey, no, this one checks the boxes. Yes, it's in the price point that makes sense and you're getting the value based on your checklist. So it's just a different process. And I know you've been crushing it there and you've been putting up some great numbers and so I know there's an art to that. So if your realtor has only done first-time home buyers, sub $500,000, again, make sure someone in their brokerage can guide them through the process and support you.
Yeah, and just having a really good overall knowledge of the market and the different areas of Reno is important too, especially if you're in that price point. I mean, I can find $1 million, $1.5 million house in a neighborhood. Sounds funny, but in a neighborhood that's not that great. But finding that right fit for you and what, again, it comes back to asking the right questions. Like if I can find you $1 million property, but you don't want an HOA, I'm not going to send you to Arrow Creek or Montreux. It all depends on what the priorities are for you, even if you're in that high price point. So if you want community, you want a nice clubhouse, you want golf course, whatever it is, having an agent that really knows the areas of the town, ask the right questions, and can direct you to the right area is more important than anything else.
Is there anything else you want to cover on the real estate market? I've got 3 questions at the end, but is there anything else you want people to know here? Anything that's relevant?
Yeah, I mean, is one of your questions about the next 6 to 12 months?
No, talk to us about it.
Okay. So it's been a very interesting year. First 6 months were growth, sell, very, very little inventory, high demand. We've completely flipped to a high supply, low demand, and I think it's going to continue through the end of the year. Everything that we see points to second quarter, beginning of third quarter of next year, we should hopefully see things change. The Fed has already announced that they are going to slow down on their rate increase. And just so everybody knows, the Fed raising the rate does not directly affect the interest rate. Everybody thinks, oh, the Fed raised the rate 0.75. That means interest rates went 0.75. That is not the case. The Fed rate affects lots of different things, but it's not a direct correlation between the rate and the interest rate, just so everybody knows. But them slowing down just gives a general positive outlook on the future. So even if they raise it 0.25 this next time, it's going to positively affect interest rates in the long-term outlook of the market. So you're starting to see the stock market come back. You've already seen interest rates come down about a full percent from 7.5% to 6.5%, roughly. And moving forward, I think you'll continue to see home values slightly go down. I read a report that somebody said 15 to 20% the next year. I think that's insane. Our median home price right now is about $535 in Reno. It maxed out at about $615, so we're down roughly 15%. I don't think it'll go down another 15%. I think we'll see a slight decrease between now and spring, maybe even summer of next year. All signs look and head towards interest rates coming down middle to end of next year as well. So interest rates coming down means demand goes back up. Demand going back up means you have more people to compete against. You got supply coming back down. It's going to be really interesting. If you're that person that says, well, I'm going to wait till the bottom of the market, I would say have a conversation, reach out to me, reach out to your business professional, because right now you don't have a lot of competition. You can ask for more than you've ever been able to ask for before putting in offers. I'm getting $30,000 in seller credit for clients to buy down interest rate, to reduce money out of pocket, all those things. You couldn't do that before. And I think once the market turns again, you're not going to be able to do that again, because you're going to be competing with multiple offers again. So I think the sweet spot for buying a house, if you are on the fence, is between now and spring. I think you'll have the least amount of competition. I think the interest rates will start to come down the middle to end of next year. And I think we are close to the bottom of the market price-wise. So I think the next 3 to 6 months is going to be very critical in the market. I think prices are going to continue to come down, but everything's pointing to the stock market coming back. There's been a swing, politically. Unfortunately, political stuff it affects everything. So the political swing is going to change the outlook, and I think the sweet spot for a buyer is between now and spring.
That's great advice. And it's insightful, right? I think, the economy impacts everything, the rates impact. So all these things are interconnected. And so thank you for explaining how they're tied together. Anything else on your list you want to cover?
I think that's it. I think we covered pretty much everything else.
Sweet. So I've got 3 questions. So one, give us a funny story showing a house. So what's something super random you've seen or come across when showing a house?
Oh man, my favorite is when the client's very outspoken and bold about their feelings of the house, and there are multiple cameras in the house. That's just my absolute favorite. I kind of let's wait till you get outside to share our opinions. But lots of houses right now, and I think I kind of touched this earlier when I talked about renovations. A lot of people do very specific style preferences or remodels to what they like. And you walk into some of these houses and you just shake your head thinking, who told them that was a great idea? But a lot of houses right now have listening devices, have a Ring camera, have all those things. I guess the best story I have is we had a listing. A client showed that listing, or I'm sorry, another real estate agent showed their client that listing. They went out front and spoke about offers and price right in front of the Ring camera. And the wife looked at the husband and said, I have to have this house no matter what it costs. We put an offer in. 10% below the list price, and we countered them full price because we knew the wife wanted the house. So just be careful what you say in front of a Ring camera.
That's that's a good takeaway though, right? Like, and I've heard story after story after story about that. So, I think it's important to know if you're walking a house, be careful, right? And if you're selling a house, you could get some insight if you do it, right? But I'm not telling you to, but either way, right? Just it is worth paying attention to. So, I asked you this question last time. Always like to ask it. So, what's something you wish you could tell your younger self? What's a lesson you wish you'd learned? What's a piece of advice?
Yeah, it's a great question. I love this question. It really makes you reflect on years past. I think the biggest thing for me is there's so many ways to make money in the world right now. Everybody is so trained to, you go to high school, you go to college, you get a degree, you go get a W-2 job, and you work and you save for retirement. The one thing I wish I would have told myself sooner is don't be afraid to start your own business, or don't be afraid to go out on your own and be a 1099 employee. And because the people who pay the most taxes are not the business owners. They're not the people who own property. They're not the people who own things. They're the people that rent and the people that pay or get paid W-2. So I would say my biggest piece of advice from the more people I meet and the more people I talk to is, if you have a passion in something, don't be afraid to go out on your own and try it, because the only thing you're going to do is you're going to mess up, and you're going to learn from your mistakes, and you're going to become a better person. You're going to become a better business person, and you're going to become a better future, whatever it is that you're passionate about. So I would tell myself, stop being a W-2 employee earlier, and don't be afraid to go out and do something you love. Because the upside is way bigger than the downside.
Jump off the cliff, build a parachute later.
Love it.
It's hard advice, and for those of you listening, if you are in a state of trying to make a decision like that, just know that I'm happy to chat with you about it. Zeno's happy. There's lots of people that can talk to you about our own experiences in being employees versus being entrepreneurs. And, take no doubt, being a real estate agent, you're an entrepreneur, right? You own your own business. But I'll tell you this, and many people I know make more money in a month than they'd made in a whole year previous years ago as an employee, because you control it, right? Your effort can be maximized to more income. So take that as some motivation. Do you want to share any of your numbers? I don't want to ask that, but if you want to share.
No, I mean, I'll talk about it. I mean, I was a W-2 employee for a long time. I mean, and I thought I was making good money as a, late 20-year-old making $50,000-$60,000 a year in a W-2 employee. I doubled my business from last year to this year. I did 12 million in volume my first year. I just crossed 20 million in volume this year with myself and the team. I doubled my income from last year to this year. And I've made 3 times more than I've ever made in any W-2 position this year. And I hit my income goal the end of October with 2 months to go. And I'm just getting started. And it's been a fun learning experience. I've never been a 1099. I've never had my own business. I'm learning a lot about taxes, and I have an LLC. I have an S corp. Learning that whole side of things is really cool. About it just cracks me up when you hear people complain about rich people not paying taxes. It's like, that's the goal. Like the goal is to not pay taxes. The goal is to own things and be able to use those in a positive way to build your business. So that's my goal moving forward, is to really learn how to run a business and run my business the most efficient and effective way possible, and to set really big goals and to just keep adding on to it. And so I keep surrounding myself with people that are smarter than me and that have been doing it longer than me. And just taking a little bit of piece of business from each one of them and just building on it. If, like Devin said about jumping off the cliff and then parachute later, that parachute is surrounding yourself with other people that are like you, that own businesses, that are successful. I was less afraid because I surrounded myself with people who are really good at doing what they do and are really good at running a business. And so that I know that if I ever need anything, I have 20 people that I can call and say, hey, I'm just starting this, or I just opened up my own business and I'm trying to get off the ground. I need help. And there's nothing wrong with that, but just surround yourself with people who will help you, will lend out a hand, and who are really good at what they do.
Well, congrats on the journey, man. I know it's been fun to watch. It's been fun to be an advisor. It's been fun to be a friend. It's been fun to just be around you along the journey. And I love the biggest thing there is that you doubled your income in a year, right? And I know that there's not a W-2 on the planet that's a true statement. So sales is a great way where you can double it. So if you want to change your situation, I hope that there was a little motivation in there to just give you the permission, right? You don't need it, but sometimes we need to hear that there's an opportunity and someone else has paved the way for us to go out and do it. So last question I always like to ask is recommended reading or a podcast?
Yeah, I just read Ed Milet's book, Power of One More, I believe is what it's called. Great book. And then I just started David Goggins' book, You Can't Hurt Me. So I'm only a few chapters into that. I'm terrible at reading, so I finally ponied up. I downloaded Audible. I paid the subscription so that I do one book a month. And I'm trying to just pick something that is, I'm asking for recommendations. So I finished the Ed Milet book. I text 2 or 3 different business professionals and friends of mine. I said, hey, I need another book. Give me a good book. And 3 different people said David Goggins. So I'm starting to listen to his. There's so many easy reads that are out there too, that if you're not good at reading, there's a couple books out there that are just, one's called Pound the Stone. One's called Positive Dog. There's a bunch out there that are easy reads that you can get through pretty quickly if you're not good at reading. And then obviously Audible is what works for me because I drive a lot. I listen to it in the car. So those are what's helping me right now. And just right now, I think we're getting to the end of the year, getting a really good game plan for next year. So I'm reading books that are goal setting books. I'm sitting down looking at, I just Googled good goal setting, and a lot of them are pretty basic, but some of them really dial down how to set good goals and how to really, I personally, I looked at a real estate one. So it is really breaking down a way for me to track my success, track my work, and figure out what I need to do every day to make sure I'm hitting my goal for next year.
Great recommendations there. I know it is hard to read. We're in an information overloaded time, and the art of reading has disappeared. I do find as well it's easier to listen. That's why we create content, and that's how I consume a lot of my content as well. Michael, I appreciate your time, brother. I appreciate your story. I appreciate you being open and honest on your journey and your experiences. I think it helps and motivates others. And as always, if we can get one person to do something awesome and amazing just by listening to this, then we did our job. So thanks for taking the time.
I really appreciate it. Thanks so much, Devin.